Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John and this is going to be what movies I've watched in the month of July 2021. Now I haven't watched as many as I would like to have watched because it's been a busy month at work, but anyway, the ones I've watched I've had a really good time with. First up, I watched The Hands of Orlac. This is a silent film from 1924 and Eureka has done an absolutely amazing job with this movie, as they do with all their silent movies. I'm a big fan of Eureka's silent output, and it stars the amazing Conrad Veidt as well, and as soon as I saw this I thought I had to have it for that reason. And I was expecting to watch a good film, but what I saw was much more than that. I'll leave a link down to my full description of this title down below. Next, I watched a movie that I never thought I would probably see again after watching it at the cinema in 1982, and it is Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch. Now, when I saw this movie and I realised it didn't have Michael Myers, I talked about this many times, it didn't have Michael Myers in, I immediately put this, we watched the movie, we were in the cinema, watched it when I was at school, but I said I will never watch that again because it's got nothing to do with Halloween, I thought. Anyway, here I am, years later, and Keith from Euphoria Pictures sent me this on subscriber mail, and I'm really glad that he did, because the week when I was actually got this, I was actually trying to buy it off eBay, and I got caught sort of gazumped off somebody, and that they didn't keep up their part of the bargain by sending it to us, stating that there was some kind of problem with their PayPal. I don't believe it at all. They put it back on, and I hope they didn't sell it anyway. So that being said, I got this one off Keith, and I've got to say that the picture quality in here is absolutely stunning as well. Keith was right when he said it just looks fantastic, and I've got to admit, when I put it on, I had a really good time in this movie. I put all my demons aside and thought, I'm just going to watch it for what it is. I do think it should be called Season of the Witch. I would have a lot more fun with it. But anyway, that being said, I do think it's a great film, and I'm really glad that Keith sent this to me, and I'm glad I've seen it now. I know a lot of people rave about this movie, and I put it to one side because of the fact of the whole Michael Myers isn't in it. But yes, I've moved on from that, and I do accept it as a good film, and as a standalone film in this franchise. It's strange to have that that name. It's a bit like Friday the 13th Part 5 is a little bit strange in the canon, but I do like that movie. So thanks once again, Keith, for sending it to us. I did enjoy this film, and it's quite a good film actually. I'll give it that. Next, I watched Possum. Now, this one, I didn't know what to expect from this movie, and what I got was something completely different, and what I got was something completely different in a good way. I thought it was going to be sort of like a creature feature. I thought it was going to be this sort of spider-like being that's going to be plaguing people. I don't understand why it was called Possum or anything like that. But what I got was a low-budget British film, and the sort of basic story, without going too much into it, you've got to watch it to the end, and then it makes complete sense, because towards the end I was thinking, well, where's this going? And then when it actually came to sort of making sense, I thought, wow, that was a great film. On reflection, I need to watch it again. It's a very creepy film as well. Now, this thing here is a puppet, and this guy here is a puppeteer, and he makes this this thing called Possum. He writes a book, a children's book about this to himself. He doesn't publish it. When he was a kid, he wrote this book about this thing called Possum, and that's all I'm really going to say about it. But I tell you what, it's got one of the best jump scares I've ever seen in a movie. I nearly fell off my seat when it happened, so be warned. Good film, and you can get it cheap as well. Next up, me and my wife watched Crime Wave. This is the 1985 kind of flop from Sam Raimi. It's his comedy that he had out between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. I personally think it's a great film. I think some of the stuff in here is amazing. I think it's very funny. I just love this film. It's got loads of Sam Raimi effects in it. It's got a lot of great camera work. It's got I thought that Bruce Campbell was in this, and I thought he was only in for a small amount, but he's in a lot more than I thought he was, although he's not the main star, although I think he should have been the main star. But this is the special edition from Indicator, and they do a good job of it actually. It's a great stellar picture quality, but it's good enough for what it is, because I think this film was quite low budget and quite cheaply done. But It as a movie, it's just a slapstick comedy. Think of it like that, with sort of Evil Dead camera work effects in it. And I like the actors in here, and I have a great time with it. So for me, it's a winner. And my wife hummed and hawed a little bit to watch it, and she did fine by the end of it. She did really like it, and there's just some great sort of funny stuff in here. Next up, we watched The Hitman's Bodyguard, and I was chatting with Stephen Monkey Mason from the Lonely Tree Entertainment, link to his channel down below, and he was saying that when I picked it up and I'd said, what do you think about it, because I think about getting the 4K, and he said it's a decent film, but he thinks that the actual explosions, especially in here, are very much CGI, and I understand what he's saying, and I could see where there was a lot of CGI that you thought that looks quite cheap. I think that Ryan Reynolds is such a funny bloke anyway. I just like him in anything, and I think that, as he always is, Samuel Jackson, who doesn't seem to age at all. I mean, he's getting on now, but he just always seems to look exactly the same, and he's brilliant in it as well. Salma Hayek is absolutely amazing, and Gary Oldman as well. I mean, I wasn't expecting to see him in it, so it's got a good cast. I do personally think it's a pretty decent watch, and I can't wait to watch the second one, actually, although they say the second one's not as good. Next up, we watched the 4K of Apollo 11. Now, this movie is unreal for the fact it tells a true story of when the Apollo 11 went to the moon and back. Well, they set foot on the moon, did some experiments, and they came back, and it tells you about how they actually achieved that. Now, what it's got on here is they've got some behind the scenes footage that they found after years and years, and they cleaned it up. It was 35mm, and it looks pin sharp and absolutely beautiful as well. Now, some of the stuff that they've got in here, when they're transporting the actual rocket along on this massive sort of platform with these humongous tires, and just stuff like that you see, and we were in awe of the stuff behind us to get this rocket to where it was, and the process they had of actually taking the rocket off. The sound on here is pretty good. It's not bad, because don't forget that a lot of this stuff is maybe some old footage, some old stock footage as well, which isn't that great quality, or isn't as good as the 35mm stuff. You can tell where that is because it really sticks out like a sore thumb. And some of when the rocket takes off, the noise from this, I mean, it's sort of your system's not really doing much at this point, but when it actually fires up and then just explodes off, it nearly puts a hole in the floor. It's brilliant, and it's a brilliant watch as well. So the film I watched was 2016's Masterminds. Now, this tells the true story, in a way, of this gang who go and steal the largest amount of money that was ever stolen at that point in American history. And it's sort of this madcap adventure about these sort of misfits who get together and do this this heist. And it's such a funny film. It's like a bit off the wall as well, as a bit off kilter, which is what I like about comedy. There's an amazing scene in here, which my wife came in when I was watching halfway through, and this scene came on. She says, "Did that happen?" And I went, "Yes, it did." So what happened was, this guy here, he goes to Mexico to hide out, and he's got some money, and he goes and has a bit of a party. He goes and he's in the water with swimming, and he's got a photograph camera, and he starts taking photographs of the fish, and this moray eel comes out, and he starts to make, I think he's got a hot dog, and he gives this moray eel a hot dog. Well, the moray eel latches onto his arm, and he's trying to get it off. He's flinging it all over the place, and I think some boat comes along, they're trying to get this eel off him. And then he goes and he's partying around, and he's on the beach, and he's having a great time. So he goes to get, I'm going to start a laugh here, he goes to get some water from this sort of street vendor, and he's got his head under the tap. It's called agua, and he's drinking this stuff, and it's not clear, it's like brown. So he's in the swimming pool with these lovely girls, and he's minding his own business, having a drink, and all of a sudden you hear his stomach gurgling and bubbling, and the next thing you see is this sort of brown slurry coming up to the surface and filling the pool, and people are screaming and running out, and he's like just looking as if to say, "My God, what's just happened?" It was so funny. I'll link that clip down below. Honestly, it's just such a good laugh. Next up, I watched Dead and Buried. This is the amazing lenticular 4K from Blue Underground. It's just recently been released by them, and as it is with every one of the other ones, it's an amazing version of this movie. You get the soundtrack, you get everything with it. The picture quality isn't the best, but I think that's just due to the fact of where it was like made. You know, it's just, I'll leave a link down below to this, the full review I've done this movie down below, so that'll give you a bit more of an insight into it. But I had a great time in this movie. In fact, I hadn't seen it for that long. I forgot most of the story, and it's a lot better than I thought it was, so highly recommended that one as well. Next up, I watched the 4K of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Now, I'm busy doing a video about this and sort of Arrow in general about 4Ks, the 4K remastered Blu-rays versus the 4Ks themselves. I do think this is the best version of this film by far, but because the 4K, especially the special edition remastered Blu-ray of the 4K, is quite close to this in a lot of aspects, which I'll go more into in the video. It's going to make me think a little bit differently about getting the 4K upgrades on 4K of the Arrow titles of these old classics that they've done a good job on the 4K already. Is it worth it? Anyway, this one and Cat o' Nine Tails and Deep Red are day one buys for me because I like them that much. I love Dario Argento's early films anyway. I'll probably buy a lot more of his films on 4K. But as it moves into other movies that are coming out, I'm going to be a little bit more choosy, but I'm going to go into that in another video to say what's the benefits of the 4K upgrades from a 4K remastered Blu-ray, and sometimes it's not that much. Okay, so but there'll be a full review of this one coming up. I love this film, had a great time with it, as I do every time I watch it. So highly recommended though. This is the 4K, this is the special edition, and it should be still out to buy, but try and get it before the scalpers get a hold of it. Okay, so before I tell you my favourite movie of the month, I'm going to pass you over to myself yesterday unboxing a movie that I got through the post. So let's unbox this. This is the one that I ordered the other day. It's a pre-order, and deep joy. And it is The Violent Professionals. And this has just been released, and there's a few getting released actually this week, so I've got a few to pick up, but I really like these versions that they're doing now. I would imagine that these are here for a certain length of time. I think it's limited to 2,000, I believe. I'm sure my good friend Gary Turley told me that. So as usual, you get a really nice hard box with this. I'm just thinking that 88 films in this line are doing a really sensational job with their stuff. I really am locked into this collection now. I'm hoping to get all of these in this these nice versions. I know they're about £25 on release, but I've got a feeling when they do go out to print and you want them, there will be a lot more than that. This lovely booklet. 88 films, like I say again, they're doing a really excellent thing with their releases now. I do find it to be knocking on the door for Arrow's title of being the #1 guys doing this type of thing. And the poster's on a nice thick card as well. You get that one, then you get probably an original poster there as well. So after the unboxing, I went downstairs and I checked this out. It's a 2K restoration, and it looks absolutely lovely. And also you get a lot of extras in here, some really good, well done extras, so it's quite jam-packed with extras. And also the soundtrack on here is one of the best soundtracks I've heard. I had to actually listen to the theme tune all the way through because it was just such a good bit of music. So spine number 66, very highly recommended. And I love the presentation of this. It's a strange colour to have on the shelves. Most of them are quite dark colours, and this is like I wouldn't even know what this colour is, like a light beige. So really pleased to have that in the collection. So my top pick for this month is Barb and Star Visit Vista Del Mar. Now, I do like Kristen Wiig, so it was a no-brainer to watch this movie. I heard a lot of bad things about it, saying it was one of the most worst films that's ever been made. But I hear that a lot about her stuff, and usually I have a good time with all her movies, even Ghostbusters 2016. And I've got to admit, this movie is so good. It's just mindless, and I mean mindless fun. The actual sort of plot in this is preposterous. The acting is quite ridiculous, but I think it's all done with a slight tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing. The characters in here are nuts, the situations are nuts. The fact that they just go to this, they go to visit this this couple, Bob and Star, who are good friends. They go to this holiday place in the Vista Del Mar just to have a holiday, and unbeknownst to them, there's a woman who has been afflicted by some skin complaints. She can't go out in the sun. She's got this real big problem with this area, this seaside resort. So what she decides to do is she decides to get these mosquitoes that will kill people when they sting them. She's bred them, or had them bred for her, because she's a bit like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers, a bit like a supervillain. She has an evil plan to send a submarine to just outside where this resort is, and to actually set these insects free, so they'll kill everybody on the beach. And these get involved in that. And yes, it's as stupid as that, but I thought it was just absolutely brilliant. The picture quality, I watched it in ultra high definition on Sky, and the picture quality was absolutely amazing. It's so colourful, this movie. I would love to get it on 4K if it even exists on 4K. It probably does in the States. But if you like just mindless fun, and I'm not going to say this is this is not going to be win any Oscars for best acting. It is what it is, but I just had such a good time with it. I was expecting to think it was like average and I wasn't going to do anything else with it and just say, yeah, well, I watched it. But I had such a good time that I'm actively seeking out the 4K, so that shows you how much I enjoyed this movie. So on that curveball, thanks for watching, you take care, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.